Passivity holds power, and when the church doesn't stand for what's right, there are always detrimental consequences. In 1934, the German church was faced with a harsh decision. By this time, Nazism was on the brink of spreading rampantly through German culture, and lines were being drawn between those in the German church who were openly pro-Nazi and those who stood opposed to the anti-Semitic ways of the Third Reich. Hitler knew he had to influence the church to win over the culture, but he also knew he had to do this quietly. Thus, among the roughly 18,000 pastors in Germany, two sides were established. Of these 18,000 pastors, about 3,000 stood aggressively with Hitler, believing that the church would flourish if they were to follow the culture. Another 3,000 stood against the Nazis, advocating for the separation of church and state to protect the true doctrine of Christianity by signing the Barmen Declaration, which stood for exactly that cause. However, the failure of the anti-Nazi cause lies heavily upon the 12,000 pastors who refused to take a side out of a devotion to the status quo in fear of speaking up. You see, the German church held a great amount of influence upon the country's culture. If even a fraction of those undecided 12,000 pastors had joined the resisting side, it isn't a stretch to say that millions of lives would have been saved and the Nazis would have never succeeded in conquering the German state. Passivity holds power, and when the church doesn't stand for what is right, there are always detrimental consequences. Don't copy the behavior and the customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, and His will is good and pleasing and perfect. Romans 12, verse 2.